Mhm. Board games, it's what I'm talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off the streaming with a little bit of singing, and today I will show you the ideas of some games that are totally new. Some of them are up on BGG, some of them, well, one of them only started getting together recently. These are things that I call Bezzy Bargain Bags, getting them out there so that there are things that folk can have, and hopefully they can bring joy to other folk. Maybe having interesting pondering, or maybe having a joke. Board games and Bezzy Bargain Bags, it's what I'm talking about. Bezzy Bargain Bags in the future, I'm not gonna shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. I am Bez. It is 10 a.m. UK time, which means it's time for Bezzy Beats and Board Game Blether. And today I thought I would chat about my future Bezzy Bargain Bags. Now, it feels like my personal output is now going along three strands. There's some stuff that I do in proper boxes. The Ldec, Kitty Cataclysm if I manage to get it reprinted. These, and like a game wherein you bled or Scottish woman into stock at length at a fast rate without necessarily making very much sense, using as many word cards as possible as you spout a stream of consciousness, blah 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 blah. That game. These are coming in proper boxes. But then recently, last year in fact, I had the idea of why not get some cards in a bag, literally just cards in a bag, and that's what it is. It's cheaper for me to print. I can sell it for folk for a cheaper price, and people really enjoyed a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. I was surprised how quickly it sold out at UK Games Expo. I only printed 50, and so I was expecting them to sell out by the end of the weekend, but I wasn't expecting them to sell out quite so quickly. And so then I did the Kickstarter, and 500 of them got sold, and I actually made a profit from that. I was amazed. Like, even after paying the Kickstarter fees and everything, I think like I ended up with a small profit, which of like £1,000, which fantastic. And it feels like this is definitely a path going forwards that I need to think about. How do I make this work? What's our future Bezzy Bargain Bags that I might be working on? Let me basically lay out the plan, and if any of these sound interesting to you, let me know. If whichever of these sound exciting, and hello CD, it is lovely to see you. So CD says, "Good morning, lovely. I am sitting by the fire outside. It's beautiful here. You're a great person to play games with. Your enthusiasm rubs off. Not surprised they sold out. Thank you very much. I do like to think that it's not just because they're playing it with me, but also because of the game itself, which, people have. I found out, I think, yesterday that someone puts a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises onto their 10 by 10 challenge, which means that it's one of the games that are planning to play 10 times over 2022. And so people are continuing to enjoy it with other people. And of course, the Kickstarter people just said, yeah, I want to make noises. And so, but no, thank you very much for the lovely accolades, CD. It is, and thank you for coming. And let's talk about your recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. What have you been up to? What have I been up to? Personally, I've been on a train. I've come up to see a parent's birthday. I'm going to try and make sure that this doesn't go as long as it possibly could. Half an hour, 40 minutes is the time limit that I've set myself. And yeah, we're going out to celebrate, and tomorrow we're just going to spend some time together. And so that's definitely a recent highlight coming up. And I did have a little bit of a walk. The train was fairly quiet, which was good. I went through the underground, basically no one wearing masks, and then I realized, oh, all these people are football supporters because they all came out at the same stop. And so yeah, I think they'd just finished the match and coming out at Buchanan Street. Speaking of Scottish people, hello Jess, it is lovely to see you. Jess got asked out by Hottie in a Kilt last night at an amazing Burns night party. He was the piper, fantastic. Congratulations. And CD says they enjoyed a walk along the waterfront with a friend that CD hasn't seen for a while. That sounds lovely. So going off for walks, seeing old / cities that you've not been in for a while, just being gassed out, being validated, that all sounds good. And yeah, I sent off a few emails. That was an achievement. And apparently it's rare for white women to get asked out in Thailand. Huh. Well, let's move on and let's talk about brilliant thing, what's a little thing which is brilliant. I think actually being asked out on a date, not saying, oh, can I come over to your place, and that kind of, imposing thing, but someone saying, hey, you seem cool, you seem interesting, would you like to go somewhere and get to know each other a bit better? I think that itself is a brilliant thing. And I think that, yeah, it's just something that we can all appreciate when whatever form that validation takes. It's like a form of validation, it's a form of connection, it's a form of anticipation. Oh, what could be? And Jess says also, the ex finally contacted Jess and apologized. That was lovely. And so, yes, that is fantastic. And so, yeah, I'm super glad to hear about that. And hopefully, now you can start to move on, fingers crossed. And yeah, all the chat, this all does sound fantastic. Being asked for coffee, yes, a milestone indeed, 100%. And lots of love to the both of you and anyone else watching. As always, now I'm getting to my main topic. Feel free to ask comments and ask questions and do the whole fun like follow thing. If you're kind of a bit more on topic, I will definitely answer your questions. If your questions are completely off topic or whatever, it might take me a bit longer to get to them, or I might not get to them, but I just appreciate your presence and your general energy no matter what. Know that. Anyway. Yep, resolution is another brilliant thing. So, today I am talking about Bezzy Bargain Bags and what I am planning for the future. So, firstly, and these are not the titles of these games. This is not a full description of everything that I'm showing you. This is more me talking about what the text here says is a vague overview. So this is a game about grabbing cards and counting your veg, and the player count is 2 to 3 players, or if you buy 2 or 3 decks, you can play up to 6 or 9. This game, I already made the first edition. I printed 100 copies. After Dragon Meet, I sold a good chunk of them, like 30 of them. And then after doing an online sale, I basically sold most of the rest. I had about 13 left, and I wanted to keep back maybe like 10 to give to people and stuff. What I've done is I've sent 4 of them for publicity reasons to a show and sent a few to other reviewers, and also there's 2 copies that I'm keeping myself. And anyway, it's basically sold out. I'm not selling it until there's a new version. But this is it. The art of one of the editions is already done. This is a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your turnips. There we go. All the turnips are completely different. They're uniquely drawn, and there's all these creatures. The creatures have 4 possible heads, 0 eyes, 1 eye. Sorry, where's the 1 eye thing? There we go. 0 eyes, 1 eye, 2 eyes, or 3 eyes. There's the 2 eyes. You see them, and then they've got 3 different bodies, so wings or arms or tentacles, and then it's got the 3 different bottoms, so the chicken legs or the tail or 2 more normal human legs. In this game, this was inspired in 2020, ages ago. Back when I went to Festival International de Jeux, I saw so many speed games. I was like, oh, there's a big trend for speed games. Maybe I could make something like that. But what could my twist be? And then it occurred to me, what if there was a game where you're trying to avoid matches? Instead of going for matches, you're trying to avoid matches. So if you grab this creature and then this creature, that's a foul, because they've got the same type of head. Whereas if you grab this creature and then this creature, that's okay because it's different head, different body, different bottom. It's also a wee bit different because each of the cards is a creature, and then it brings in the turnip mechanism. The turnip mechanism suggested by playtester Andrew Beardsley. There's a whole bunch of turnips. There's more than enough turnips for everyone. And along the way, if you grab creature, turnip, well, every card is different to the previous one, so it's really easy to grab. But you're grabbing your own personal stack, and you can only grab a maximum of 5 veg. If you grab more than 5, then you automatically lose at the end. So this kind of elevates it over a normal speed game. And I've made this. What I want to do before I do the Kickstarter is I want to make 3 versions of this. So this is one version. The second version is going to be about radishes, and it will be all the colors of the rainbow. And it will be literally like a rainbow scheme, like gold, green, like maybe Pride kind of themed. And then the third version will be about beetroots, and it will be black and white. And so my plan is that there will be 3 separate decks, and people will be able to buy just one of them if they're only planning to play with 1, 2, or 3 players, or if they're planning to play with big groups, buy all 3 of them, and then you can mix them together for larger player counts. But then because it looks different, you'll be able to separate them out easily, because currently it does have little numbers, so you can in theory arrange them all by number and then separate them, but it takes 5 minutes or 6 minutes to separate out 2 decks, whereas if they were just clearly different colors anyway. And hello, Bones. It is lovely to see you. I hope that you're generally well. And who says, I was just thinking about radishes because they are kind of rad-ish. Bones. But that is the idea. The arts, it's going to be like completely new art for each of the decks, but very similar. It's just going to be redrawn. I think I'm excited to make this just because it's a slight variation on the typical speed grabbing game, and hopefully people will like it. Thank you, CD. This is the only one that I'm going to talk about where I've actually got some of the final art there. And before I go to my next thing, well done, Jess, for getting a booster, and indeed, hope you recover quickly. Now, the next game that I wanted to talk about was a game about drawing creatures, complementing the drawings, then complementing the complements. This is a game that was inspired maybe a week before the Kickstarter for a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. I talked about how I had a lookup table that was kind of randomizing the number of legs, the size of the mouth, the number of mouths, the number of eyes, the general shape, the body, and like different aspects of the creature. I had like about 12 different aspects. I would deal out, I think it might have been nine cards, and then that would be randomly generating a new creature to make sure that my wee whimsical creatures are actually different from each other, if that makes sense. And oh, Josie, I assume you're talking about the previous one, the one about quickly grabbing stuff. And thank you for jumping in. I'm glad to hear that. And also, hello, Timmy. But then the one about giving compliments, it started off someone just saying to me, oh, well, that's your next game. Roll a bunch of dice and draw that creature. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh, that's expensive. But they've got a point. If I had, different parts of the creatures on different cards, then that would work. Like if it had different instructions. And so what it basically evolved into over the course of a couple of days is everyone gets some cards. So there's 2 cards in the center with, might say, 5 eyes and angry eyebrows. And then everyone's got to draw that. But you also have 2 personal things. So your personal thing might be birdie feet and really big body, something like that. Or it might say lots of hats and tentacles, whatever. And these things can combine to be weird or wonderful or sometimes just awkward or difficult to draw, but it gives you some inspiration to draw something you probably wouldn't have drawn otherwise. And then afterwards, everyone does a grand reveal. Going round, everyone's like, oh, and then everyone has to give a compliment. Even though you know that the other players have to give your compliment, it still feels good. But here's the twist. It's not just the drawing that gets validated. The compliments themselves get validated, because after everyone's given a compliment for one drawing, you do the same for all the other drawings. And then at the end, each person says, compliments one of their favorite compliments. And you really need to listen. And so you might compliment someone saying, I really appreciate the fact that your compliment felt genuine, that you picked a specific aspect of this. And I remember David Brain saying, oh, that words that you used, I was going for something cute and you used that word, so it made me feel good that I managed to achieve that. And so that was exactly what I was going for. So thank you for that compliment. And then because of that, because of the complimenting the compliment, I mean, this is just post-analysis, and this wasn't I originally did it just because it was kind of funny, complimenting the creature, and then, hey, what if you compliment the compliments? It just sounded funny, but actually it has so much value as a human. You play it, and then you feel like, oh, my compliments had value, I've made someone happy, and there's a tiny bit of a competitive aspect, because the more players there are, the less likely it is that your compliment gets complimented. So, I mean, everyone's drawing gets complimented by everyone, but not every compliment. So it's actually the compliment that is the only kind of competitive bit about it. You want to give the best compliments. And yeah, people don't think about the difference between a good compliment and a bad compliment. And this is getting them to think about that. Anyway, I need to write more text for it. I've currently not got enough material for a full deck, but I will probably release this even if it's just a small deck. On each card, I don't think I've got the cards here. Nope, sorry. They are in London, but those ones, they are, yeah, on one side there's the creature feature, on the other side there's ideas for giving compliments to drawing, on the bottom ideas for giving compliments to compliments. So it's kind of, and it might just be repeated stuff, but that is something that I'm excited about because it's so different. I'm really excited to see how people respond to it, and it feels like every time I play it, I just end up smiling and other people end up feeling good. And so, yeah, I'd just love to bring that joy into the world. Let me know what you think of that. Next game, that is a Bezzy Bargain Bag, real-time drafting. So I've got actually the latest deck. This is obviously not the final artwork. This was all kind of drawn in a rush. I typically draw these things as quickly as I possibly can to get them played. This game was very much inspired by Fantasy Realms. A lovely drafting game. It's got a very clever mechanism, but especially the first time you play, sometimes the second time you play, sometimes if there's more players than you would personally like, it can take a little bit longer than I would like. And I kind of feel when the person if it's a 4-player game, when the person to my left is going, okay, maybe I've got a little bit to consider, but then by the time they finish their turn, I'm kind of not doing anything. And then the next person, I'm not doing anything. I'm not thinking about anything. And then sure, when the person before me is going, maybe now I'm looking at the board and I'm thinking, okay, which one of these am I going to take? And making up my decision so I can make my move quickly. But I wanted something that played faster. And so I went home and I went home after playing Fantasy Realms with friends, and I thought, how could I turn this into a real-time game, into something where everyone has to do something super quickly? So the way it works is everyone controls an area. This doesn't mean that you have access to the cards in it, but you're going to flip cards into an area in front of you. On the count of 3, everyone starts off with a card like in front of them, and then on the count of 3, you take one from the top of your deck and flip it over, and everyone's like, oh, okay, those are the cards. Oh, that's in someone else's area. And then if it's a 4-player game, you've got 4 different areas to consider. If it's a 2-player game, you've only got the 2. And then with your hand, you grab one of them if you want. You can wait. Once you grab, you have to keep basically 2 of them. If there's only 2 cards in the area, you have to keep both. If there's 3, then you keep whichever 2 of them you wanted. And so you start off the game with 1 card. The first time you grab, you go up to 3. Second time you grab, go up to 5. Third time you grab, go up to 7. And then you're basically out of the game. You're not allowed to grab anymore. At the end of the game, probably everyone's got 7 cards, and you count up the points. Cards are going to be things like wind, which works well with wind chimes. And there's a lover who needs their other lover for bonus points. There's the wind chimes that gives you bonus points with the wind. This is a very early deck. And the blank canvas gives you bonus points if you've got certain things. This card, you want things in a run. And the party hat combines with things to make a party. The volcano, you sacrifice creatures. Band leader means you look out for things that have wee musical notes on them, like some of the creatures are singing. The monocle maker wants things that have eyes, and some things just give you points, but then the lots of cake. There we go. Hungry Harriet really wants her food. And the hermit, if you grab the hermit, you have to get rid of all your other creatures before scoring. I'm going to be changing the deck quite a bit, not just graphically, but also functionally. I'm going to try and bring in more creatures and items like the volcano, like the hermits that force you to get rid of things, to slow it down a little bit, to punish the people who just grab something without looking and just go for the high numbers. Have more things with lower numbers, but then more interesting text on them, and more interactions between all the cards. It's going to take a bit of time doing this, but yeah, real-time games are a really interesting thing. Generally, real-time games kind of, for the most part, it's obvious what you've got to do. For the most part, most real-time games almost have 0 strategy. It's literally just a case of jungle speed. Okay, if your thing matches someone else's thing, grab the totem. It's not a strategy. It's not a decision. It's just a performance. And I love jungle speed. I love Wibble. Like Wibble, it's not a strategic game. Like my own game, it's just once the cards are flipped over, think of a word as quickly as you can. And it's not a strategic decision, it's just, can you do the thing? Whereas here, you know, if you've got like 10 shoes, plus one for each foot, but if you have more than 10 feet, then you get 0 points because people argue over the shoes because there's not enough shoes to go around. So do I grab that or not? And that's like a more of a strategic consideration. And so I'm really excited to kind of push into this new area because I don't think there's very many real-time games with an element of strategy. So that's something that it's still, I would say the overall framework of the game has finished. The basic rules are done, but now I need to change the cards and tweak the cards. And then once that's done, then I'll have to illustrate it. And then I'll, you know, because of the way that I do things, then I'll do the typical print a bunch of copies, see how people like it, then go to Kickstarter. But I'm super excited for that. And yeah, let me know what you think of that one if you're around. Next game is a conversation. This is a co-design with Laura Wood. It's a 2-player LARP. This came out of a conversation while we were in a pub. This was called the Game Kitchen, where the idea is that we meet together to potentially work on role-playing games. And Laura said, you know what? I like LARPs, but the best bit is when you have an argument with someone. What if you just abstract the rest of it away and then you just have this one argument? And that's the entire game, just having an argument. And obviously it's role-playing, so it's not a real-life argument. You're not meant to act as yourself. You're not meant, if you're playing with your partner, you definitely shouldn't be bringing up real-world stuff. Oh, why do you leave the socks lying around or something? You know, don't. It's all about embodying the characters. So in this game, it takes about 20 minutes, which is really short for a LARP. I mean, most LARPs are maybe 3 hours. So this is kind of like a smidgen, like a taste of a LARP. You have maybe 5 minutes or so abstracting away, deciding, okay, what kind of characters are you? You ask each other about what their motivations are, what their fictional personality is like, and it might be about how we know each other or not. And there's going to be different questions. Once we've answered a few questions to decide our background, and we've decided one of a few different scenarios, then we will just launch into it, and we will have a 5-10 minutes argument. And it's expanded. So at a certain point, we said, hey, let's use the same system, not just for arguments, but also for affirmations. Two people coming together to tell each other how much they love each other. And then the third one was first hellos, where it's like the first meeting of two people and they're kind of greeting each other. And then the last one was a final farewell, where it's like maybe someone is dying, or maybe someone is going away forever, or they're going to be incarcerated. And yeah, you can play it in a very light-hearted manner and joke around. You can also play it in a very serious manner and actually bring to life, real emotions. And at the end of it, then there's a 5-minute debrief where there's a few questions, just checking in. How do you both feel? What differences do you have to the character that you just played? And what similarities do you have to the character that you just played? And is there anything that you feel like you have to apologize for? There has to be some sort of checking in that each other is okay, reminding each other that, yes, you just spent 10 minutes arguing each other and shouting at each other, but it's still a game. It's still role-playing. It's still acting, if you know what I mean. And Jess, I'm glad that seems to resonate with you. And yeah, it is the reason why I'm excited to make this thing is partially because it's a co-design with Laura Wood, partially because it feels like a easy introductory thing to LARP. So for those who've played board games or interested in card games, it's kind of oh, this is not what LARP is, but this is like a tiny 20-minute sampler of what a LARP is, where it's simple enough that you can just read through the cards and then you get to see everything, if that makes sense. Oh, frantically counting. I wish if I were in London, I would just show you the near final artwork. So this is a game which I wanted to actually print ages ago. It's fully done. It's a game about frantically counting colors and shapes. On one side of the card, you've got black and red, triangles, circles, and crosses. On the other side of the card, you've got symbols that show what you have to count. If there's a black squiggle, just count all the black things. Red squiggle, count all the red things. If there's a circle, like a multicolored circle, count all the circles. And sometimes there's two shapes. The thing that makes this game interesting is that each time you win, you grab the card from the center and add that to your own personal pile. Like Wibble, each card is a point, but each point is another obligation. It's another slightly different thing. It's another obstacle. It's another thing that you have to count. So if one person wins 3 times and the other person hasn't won yet, the person who's won 3 times will have to count 4 cards, the 3 that they've already gathered plus the one in the center, whereas the other person only has to count 1 card. And at that point, they should definitely be able to catch up. The game is super quick. It's I say 2 to 5 players. I think 6 can kind of work. It's basically how I think I played 8, and that actually works quite well. I need to. 2 is officially a slight variant where you need to make sure that the other person sees the face of the card before you do, whereas in the other versions, in the free player and so forth, the person flipping the card is the judge. But it just goes until one person has 5 cards in front of them, at which point they win. And if you make a mistake, you lose all your cards. So it's sudden death. It's sudden elimination. And every time I played it, like, people got really into it. I showed it off. It's had some reviews on Board Game Geek. It was previously called Just Plus, but I am going to expand the title. I will be making this, although I'm not sure whether I will stick with the abstract nature of just having colors and shapes, or potentially I might have some little creatures or animals or something, and it might be cats or it might be 3 types of aliens. I don't know. Maybe we whimsical creatures is going to be just a trademark thing that most of my games kind of have some sorts of fantastical creatures in them, except for the conversations. That's kind of very much meant to be real world, down to earth stuff. But yes, frantically counting. I am excited for this because it's a typical speed grabbing game, but it adds a slight educational aspect to it, and the catch-up mechanism makes it work really nicely. You can play it with people of greatly different skills and people will still have fun. There's 3 more things that I want to talk about. So a poem creation game. This is, like it says, more of a creativity tool. There's nothing on these cards, but just, yeah, these are not the cards. So on one side, it would show a subject. So you've got like 50 different subjects just to inspire you. So you might shuffle and say, okay, now we're going to make a poem about fish. Okay, now we're going to do a poem about looking out a window. And then there's going to be 50 things with little kinds of illustrations, and then on the other side it's just got a bunch of words that all rhyme. It's about making poems that rhyme, and there's a few different games. None of them are super amazing. None of them are like, whoa, it's just I don't think there's any other thing out there for just, hey, let's make a song or that rhymes or a poem that rhymes and let's make something together. So we had things where people were, I played with Chris and McCall where we were taking turns to use one of the words that rhyme, and then once we'd done that 4 times, we'd flip the next one, and then we'd go through that one. And you can do it as a solo game where you're just using the cards for inspiration to push you through different things, and it could potentially be a classroom thing. I just think, again, it's allowing people an opportunity to express themselves, and it's a creativity tool that maybe didn't exist. You'll notice that I'm kind of alternating between things that are more like games and more of not a game, like a weirder thing. And so back to something that is, if I wanted to be very reductive, I could say this is basically apples to apples with more discussion on speed. So this is a game that I recently worked out. You've got a perfume bottle, lollipop, bread, and tomato, for example. The original version of this game was just a speed game. You're grabbing the things, and then the cards say, look for something that's food, or look for something that's not round, and it was originally not red and not smelly. I tried to make sure that there were as many objects that are a thing as there are objects that are not a thing. You grab the thing, you grab the object as quickly as you can. Once someone's grabbed the object, no one else can grab it. You can only grab one object each round. Afterwards, it's like, yeah, that matches. Congratulations, you win a point. Yeah, that matches. Congratulations, you win a point. And sometimes there's not enough cards to go around, in which case someone doesn't get anything. That was a fun game, but at the time, people objected to the fact that what is smelly? Is a perfume bottle smelly? Well, some people might think of smelly as a bad smell, but my intention was that it was smelly. And would you start arguing that a tomato can be smelly if it's a bit old? And there was discussion. Would you say bread is smelly because it freshly baked bread? In the original playtest, I was playing it with 3 other people. 2 of them said, "Oh, I would like it to be less subjective, more objective, just so it's a proper speed game." One person, David Brain, said, "You know what? I quite like the challenge of me saying, yes, socks are actually round, because when you put your foot in them, they've got a very big roundness, especially around your ankle. That's very round." And I could see that there were kind of 2 games. One game, it's just red, round, and food. And these are things that are fairly obvious. Maybe that's not the best criteria, but roll some dice and see what they are and grab the object. The other version, which then I've playtested a couple of times, is to lean into the discussion. And so now it's not just going to be food and not round, but expensive and colorful and a great gift or a bad gift or summery or wintry or cat-like or whatever. And then everyone grabs one of these objects. Everyone argues or explains to the judge why they think bread is an expensive round food. And I would say, well, have you seen some of the bread that you can get? I mean, the price keeps going up. It's pretty gosh darn expensive for some of those fancy whole grain. And if you make it in your, home, you've got to make it with love. And love is the most expensive thing there is. And so I probably wouldn't win that argument, but making that argument is the game. And I think that, again, leaning into the discussion makes it quite different from other things. By the way, good night, CD, and have a lovely night, and I hope that you're generally well. Have a good sleep. So yeah, that is something else that I am looking forward to sharing with the world at some point. And the final thing that I would like to talk about, which I do have a wee prop, is a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises, version 2. Maybe I'll call it More Creatures, for a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. Maybe all my expansion packs will have the expansion title at the start and then, have the name of the game afterwards, because, yeah, that feels like it makes sense. Anyway, so this is the original version. And what I'm thinking is I would like to make an international Kickstarter, because working with Vanguard, hopefully, it'll work well and we can do more things. And I would basically like to draw about 80 new creatures. I'll probably have still the 7. I'll have a bunch of numbers so that it can be playable on its own. But my plan is for it to people who've got the original who want a lot more creatures, maybe they get that for more creatures. And people who were international and couldn't get the original, well, it's going to be like an add-on, so you'll be able to get the original as well as the sequel if you want at that point. And yeah, it just feels like it went really well. I should make a sequel, and I do quite like drawing the creatures, and some people have complained. Someone complained that there wasn't enough diversity in the creatures. Someone said, oh, I found it really hard, so maybe I'll have some more birdie things, because birdie things are kind of quite easy. And also, if there's only one birdie thing at a time, then that's a bit weird. But yeah, I'll kind of think a little bit about it, have a few different themes. Potentially, it might be different expansion packs that I start off doing digitally and think, oh, what do you think about this? And then putting them all together. But basically what all this is a bunch of new creatures. And so if people like that. And Josie suggests, call it expanding creatures and make them all plumper. I like that. I like that joke. Like a creature expansion and then all the creatures are bigger. What if the creatures literally didn't fit on a card? So, all the creatures were bigger than the card. So it was like they were kind of called round. What if the creatures were made of 2 cards? What if they were like, putting the head and body and bottom together like, the Immaculate Corpse? But yeah, I'm not. Before I start, yeah, I do like that idea. But I'm not sure. I think I do also just want to have more creatures. I think that's something that people would want, but let me know. And hello, Scrappy Kid. It is lovely to see you. Thank you for joining in. But yes, that is the last thing. Those are the games that I am super excited to share with the world. I mean, that's not everything that I'm working on. Of course, I am working on Ldec games. This is a game, it doesn't look like much, but you've got different suits, and it's kind of like Rummy, where you're drafting cards in order to make sets. And then once you've made sets, you basically, each time you make a set, you get rid of 2 of the cards, and then you keep the remainder. So if you make a set of 3, you keep 1 card. You bank 1 card. If you make a set of 4, you bank 2 cards. And then you play 2 rounds with all, and then at the end, looking at all the cards you've banked, what are the biggest sets that you can make? And so you're making sets, then making sets in order to make sets at the end. And once you've made sets at the end, then the most cards that you've got after you've made your final sets, then you're the winner. And this is a game that, people who are playing it are saying, yeah, this is really interesting. There's an interesting tactical component, and I'm enjoying making it. It just doesn't, it's just an example of something that doesn't quite grab me as much. And there are, some things that I'm working on, like, some economic games, and I'm working on Seize the Power of Inside the Box. That's, fingers crossed, more information going to come out soon. But that's a game I'm really proud of, and Rose and Peter are getting back on the case. I heard that they did a few playtests recently. And so and obviously, of course, I want Categorical to come out and finish that. And I've got a business meeting with people to work out logistics and manufacturing late on Tuesday nights at like 11 p.m. UK. So I'm going to be up until like 12:30 in a meeting, and then probably spend half an hour winding down before having. I tend to go to bed quite early these nights. But yeah, there are other things that I'm also working on, but these things that I've talked about are the things that I'm most excited to share. Let me start winding down, and then I will answer all the comments. So firstly, just finding the banner. Over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. And so if you want to share something that you're doing, something that you've been up to, or any questions, now is your time. Yeah, feel free to ask or share anything. So firstly, Scrappy Kid, just waking up. Dan was up until 2 a.m. playing two-player strategy game Polis with a mate last night. I do not know that game, but if it kept you up, I'm sure that it must be great. Is that a video game? Is it a board game? Let us know if you would like to. Jess is super excited by the Rummy style game. I mean, yeah, basically the only thing that it was inspired by Rummy and that you're making sets. And I like the aspect of thinking about what you're leaving for the following player, but I prefer it when there's multiple discard piles, which is why in this version, when you pick up stuff, you then discard it, but then all the cards you discard need to go into different discard pile. But yeah, if you're playing it expecting to play a Rummy variant, you might be disappointed. It's kind of evolved quite a bit from that. Josie says, how do you keep all of the different ideas different to one another? Does working on all of these at the same time not get confusing? No, I mean, consider all the things that you are playing, like all the games that you might play in a single day or in a month. Like if you go to convention, you'll play lots of different games. And sure, if you play Architects of the West Kingdom and then you play Agricola, sure, there's commonalities between the two of them because you're putting down a little person and then you're doing an action, and the strategic flows of those games is the same, in the same way that if you play Splendor and then you play Century Spice Road, for example, like those are quite similar games. If you've played one of them, you will be better at learning the other, but you are able to keep the rules apart in your mind. And in a sense, it's not that different when you're making games. I think the key thing is that making so many games, you can sort of take inspiration from stuff. Like the game about frantically counting colors and shapes, that's took some inspiration from Wibble. I mean, it's a completely different game, but just the fact that you've got more items in front of you, expanding it. And this game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your turnips. I mean, the quickly grabbing parts and putting them into a personal stack that was directly taken from Grabble. And I think that the more you do, like, I think that's, I mean, I can't give any clear tips. For me, it's easy to keep them apart. actually working out where one of them is going. At some point, if two games were to converge and say, yeah, these two things are getting quite similar, then maybe I would put them together in a game and it would be an even better game, because there have been games like that. I mean, Keyflower was made by Richard Breeze and Sebastian Bleasdale, I believe, both having different games, and then saying, hey, wait a minute, if we use that bit of your game and that bit of my game, bring them together, and then they work perfectly. And so, yes, you can combine games, you can even separate games. But fundamentally, I think it's the most important thing is to have a vision of what the game is about. Like the game about, things matching certain criteria. If I'm printing that myself, I'm going to move it away from a speed game. I'm going to lean into the discussion aspect. And so by diversifying it from my own things, I'm also kind of probably diversifying it from what else is out there, and I'm trying to find new space to explore. Jess says, oh, that's a late night meeting, but I believe in you because you have done those 25-hour streams. Jess is snuggling with the shark in bed, having had a booster yesterday. Post-fever sweaty. What should I eat? You can name any food. Tin curry? That's just the first thing that comes to mind. I would... Yeah, I guess you're not up to going outside. Can you get a delivery? Can you just get someone to bring you some pad thai or something? Josie was up really late playing Goose Goose Duck. And Jess says, I think Bez has many brain compartments for different brains. Copycat by Friedman Fries is another example of borrowing mechanics. Luckily, board game mechanics are not copyrightable or patentable. I mean, that's a question whether they should be for a very short period of time. I mean, should Dominion have been allowed to enjoy a bit more time in the spotlight before, all those other things came out? I don't know. But what I will say is that technically, if someone wanted to, if that's the thing, like, as long as you rewrite the rules, as long as the text is different, you can make the exact same game. So I could literally just remake Agricola with the exact same numbers as long as the rules are completely written. And I don't think that's cool. Luckily, people do work on a sort of honor system, because if someone were to do that, then obviously they would not have the first mover advantage. They wouldn't be able to, make it in the same way. But what it does mean is that in China, you can get to knock off, and as long as they have different art, different text, it can be exactly the same. And yeah, obviously I'm not going to do that, of course. But yeah, does anyone want to share what they're up to other than, laying in bed and eating pad thai? I'm personally going to finish up, and then I'm going to go out, celebrate parents' birthday. And so at this point, let me recap and wrap up before I finish up. Recap and wrap up. So I talked about a whole bunch of things that I would like to be excited to make as future Bezzy Bargain Bags. A game about quickly grabbing creatures that are so different and counting your turnips, radishes, beetroots. Simple speed game, but with an extra memory aspect as you count the things. A game all about the compliments, where it just makes you feel good to hear these compliments and to think about the compliments and think about what distinguishes a good compliment from a bad compliment. And then this actually feels like the kind of game that could make the world a slightly nicer place, potentially. A real-time drafting game. I mean, this is quite an involved thing. It feels like I just want to show, hey, not all of my games are suitable for 5-year-olds. And this is a game that I might actually put in some more advanced words into the title to say something like a game about quick real-time drafting and finding 7 cards that have the most synergy. I mean, that sounds like a boring title, but, you know, having complicated words in there shows, hey, this is possibly going to be a more complicated game, because there's a lot of reading, there's a fair bit of maths at the end, but hopefully slightly less maths than, no more maths than Fantasy Realms, hopefully slightly less. But yeah, I want to bring more strategy to real-time games. Yeah, a 20-minute LARP. This is exciting me. This game is just, I think it's really well refined. And if someone else, a lot of the Bezzy Bargain Bags, I kind of think of them as almost making prototypes and getting them out there. In the same way as In a Bind, sure, I did 3,000 copies. Yeah, I think there's about 3,000 copies of In a Bind in existence. And obviously Yogi has like 100 times that, but Yogi, it was easy to pitch because I was like, here's the thing, and I don't need to, and you know, it's just a fun, energizing way to get through that process before I potentially pitch to a publisher. So yes, this is a game that potentially could go, I've heard people saying that this could be a bigger seller than Yogi because it's like a really mass market, real time, simple to understand, and really approachable. Poem creation, this is just a fun creativity tool. It was just like, yeah, it's a fun thing. Let's see. A game about discussion and, yeah, bringing that, mixing discussion with real time elements. You know, it's again a unique thing, I like to think, and having that apples to apples, but it's not just about the turning the cards over that you've already got the thing. There's like 3 criteria that you've got to consider, and then you've got to make your case to the judge, and that's a big part of it. It's not anonymous. And so, yeah, sure, there's the old snake oil problem of you might just always give the point to the person in last place, but it's a game for people who enjoy discussion. And yeah, it's, if there's someone super playing to win, honestly, this is a bit more, it's not, this is not a game that you'd really enjoy if you're playing to win. And yeah, I want to make more wee whimsical creatures for a game about wee whimsical creatures and try to identify them after someone makes noises. But yeah, that is what I talked about. And so thank you, Jess, for the birthday wishes. I'll pass that on. Scrappy Kid says, I am waking up, drinking Diet Coke, playing crappy Facebook games and Wordle. Sounds good. I've also started playing the French one. And yeah, where are we going for the birthday? Well, we're spending a good chunk of it in the house, but we're also going to restaurants. Thank you very much. And yes, I will pass on all these wishes. Name for game, Hepta Hand Hustle. Hepta Hand Hustle. Oh, I like that. I'll ponder that. I wish it was my birthday every day. I know Bez will find this statement incredibly flawed. What kind of food will you go for? I don't know. But I am going to skedaddle. I do apologize, but lots of love. It has been lovely having you all. Thank you, as always, for being here, giving me company, and allowing me a space to talk about stuff. If you, as always, if you want to check me out, say I'm stuffbybez.com, stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, where you can buy my stuff. I'm going to raise the prices potential of some stuff soon, but I will have sale on 1st of August, don't worry. Twitter.com/stuffbybez, Instagram.com/stuffbybez, Twitch.tv, where I stream every day at 2 AM UK time, YouTube. I'll be, you can see the old things, Discord, stuffbybez.com/Discord. Please join that and make some predictions. I'm a bit sad that no one else has joined in the prediction game. If you want to check out what's going on next week or in future weeks, check out stuffbybez.com/streams. And eagle-eyed viewers might be noticing that Next week, I don't have anything planned for Sunday or Monday. Let me know if you would like to suggest anything. Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Thursday, our London Toy Fair. I might do a live stream from there. And yep, Dina is going to keep coming on every couple of weeks. I've also got Alan Paul from the 9th of February returning every couple of weeks. If you'd like to join, if you'd like to suggest a guest, if you'd like to suggest a topic, do let me know. Share, spread the word. Thank you, everyone. And for now, yeah, the only things I really have to say is lots of love to you and bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Make any predictions you want in the thing, anything that's measurable. But lots of love. Have a wonderful day. Once again, bye-bye.